Hello and welcome to all the ghouls and vampires out there. I'm Joe here with me is my co-host Stan.
Hello and greetings.
Today we're reviewing Halloween 4. Now I know we've got our one podcast where we're analyzing every frame of the movie, but this is essentially an overall review for the more in-depth, shot-for-shot overall analyses. You go to that podcast, but for this is just a general overview and review. This movie came out in 1988 and was written in about 11 days, which is pretty impressive. That said, the story follows kind of three characters. Well, actually four. You have Michael Myers, you have Loomis, and you have Jamie and Rachel. In this timeline, Laurie Strode and her husband, James Lloyd, ended up having a daughter, only for them to then die in a car accident. I don't know if Jamie was there for the car accident or not, but it seems that Jamie has fond memories of her mother and is very attached to those memories. That said, when Michael is supposed to be transferred, the incompetent staff at the asylum don't really send any security. What else is new? And decide not to make the pursuit of him too much of a priority. They just don't seem interested, which is really pathetic. That said, if you look at real life with how much of a priority serial killers often are, especially in the past few years, this is totally believable. Actually, I think that the police in Haddonfield do get a little too worked up. I mean, no offense, but from what I've seen in recent days, historically they would probably go, yeah, whatever. If we run into Michael, we'll deal with him, but we're not going to stress out about him. And I know that's a very, very bleak outlook of law enforcement and whatnot, but my faith in such things has been a little shaken recently. I could be wrong, but that said, in universe, as this is a horror movie, you're not to have too much faith. The sheriff is approached by Loomis, who once he arrives in town after a brief skirmish with Michael, and after getting getting essentially just laughed at by locals and picked up by a priest, the local sheriff doesn't seem to take the threat as seriously as he should, positioning his men all over the place and generally leaving the police station unguarded, so that his incompetence is just mind-numbing. That said, he travels with Loomis and behaves a bit like the sheriff from the first movie, with Loomis ultimately scarred from the first two films, only both physically and psychologically, and being desperate to capture Michael, puts emphasis on that part of his mission. As to Jamie, having seen in a vision the ambulance and frightened for her life as she has been barely getting any sleep for 4 nights in a row, yet seems unaffected, so that there's something peculiar about the girl. And Rachel tries to get her to go to bed initially and assures her of her love for her, but it doesn't seem to assuage Jamie, who then has a nightmare of Michael dragging her down beneath her bed, but then she takes refuge in her closet where her parents find her, and where I can't help but wonder if it really was a dream.
It leaves it very, very questioned, because a child not getting enough sleep 4 nights in a row, that's going to raise questions. And normally that's a situation where you should bring a child to the hospital.
But
And
Jamie,
one would assume that a child at that point might get some hallucinations.
but Jamie has the hallucinations, but she doesn't seem at all worn. She's actually as fit as ever, and actually far more lucid than some of the other kids her age, and demonstrates a great deal of wit and cunning throughout the film. So that there is something uncanny about it. That said, once at school, she's picked on by some of the local kids, which, yeah, they're cruel to her, and she ends up picked up by Rachel after school, who takes her to the local corner store where she, or discount store, I think it is, where Rachel's boyfriend works, Brady. But it turns out he's kind of got a thing for the sheriff's daughter, and later ends up cheating on her, which leads to some drama. In turn, Jamie picks up a costume, a certain clown costume, sees Michael, who's come to pick up his own costume. What a thief. And, of course, Rachel ends up hearing the scream of Jamie, comes to fetch her, and from there, that they go trick-or-treating, only to that night, well, run into Michael a few times, and we get the whole crusade of blood that Michael's on, slaughtering people, and you've got the police station that's hit, even as the power's cut out because of Michael's machinations, so that Loomis and the sheriff arrive at the station to find a good chunk of the police force butchered, and it doesn't look like they put up too much of a good fight, though there was a small fight put up. So Loomis enlists the help of the local rednecks and essentially the militia guys, who seem to have a better idea of what they're doing than the police did, which, wow. Anyways, the rednecks end up accidentally, according to Cinema Snob, shooting down Ben Tramer's cousin, Ted Hollister, while Jamie gets separated temporarily from Rachel while trick-or-treating. Weirdly, the other kids lead her away and then disappear in the fog. So that I wonder if the kids were even there.
Or if it was a manifestation orchestrated by the Shape.
Yeah, the Shape in this film is not simply just some shuffling, pathetic, incompetent buffoon, but rather seems like a genuine demonic force out to transfer itself to a new host. We have to, I think, kind of look at it as essentially incarnating itself. That is to say, it's a kind of disembodied spirit that incarnates itself into the living body of a person within the Strode clan. Now, I'm going to look at the clan thing as almost being the ancient Greek Norse kind of sense of, or Japanese sense of it. That is to say, an extended family. It doesn't exactly mean it has to be within the same bloodline. And that said, this Shape is incarnating itself into Michael. And my theory would be that only someone within this bloodline could permanently destroy the Shape. And, or I say bloodline, but this family. So that the thing is, Michael, whose body is breaking down, is desperate to find a new host for the Shape. And so that host would be Jamie. That's the only person he acknowledges as family. The trouble is that once incarnated into Jamie, there'd be a new family. That of the Carruthers. That is to say, Rachel. And so, while the Shape is trying to clean up a loose end and reincarnate itself into a new body, it'll soon face the old problem of having to dispose of a family and keep to the body until it breaks down. And I'm not going with any Thorn cult nonsense from Halloween 5 and 6 here. I'm just going off my own assumptions and guesswork from Halloween 4 as though it were from a separate universe. And I actually prefer to look at Halloween 4 as being separate from Halloween 5 and 6, and that those two are not in. I prefer to look at it as almost Halloween 1, 2, 4, and that's it. Now, that said, if you look at it that way, this is a story without a sequel, and thus it'd be nice if we got one, but I don't think we ever will. And yes, I do think Danielle Harris should come back to do a movie where she's the Shape. I'd very much like to see that. And I know some people would say yes, but that would be a lady doing essentially the Michael Myers thing. And I don't really have a problem with that. We don't have too many slasher horror monsters that are female. And so it would be very, very, very interesting to see that done, if done correctly. Though I do understand some of the naysayers going, well, it wouldn't be as physically daunting as a guy to an extent. I'm not going to fault those who say that, but I will say I do think this would be more interesting to an extent, to at least try it once. Because look how great it worked with Friday the 13th Part 1 with how creepy Pamela Voorhees is.
Yes, and
that said, the sheriff, Loomis, end up picking up Jamie and Rachel and escorting them to, well, like I said, first to the police station, and where they run into the rednecks who get deployed by Loomis. And then the two girls are brought to the sheriff's home, which they then hunker down into and turn into essentially a bunker. Only trouble is, apparently Michael's got semi-teleportation abilities, or at least snuck in while the blonde middle-aged cop was not looking. Guns are passed around amongst the menfolk, and the ladies engage in some catty nitpicking between each other regarding how slutty they are and whatnot. That said, it soon turns into a slaughterhouse when Michael tears apart the one cop, then murders the one sheriff's daughter. I forget her name. But he does it by taking a shotgun. Yeah, Michael Myers with a shotgun. That's pretty creepy and frightful. But he rams it right through her, which is rather disgusting and a little daunting, considering it implies he has quite a bit of strength. Only for Brady to then hold him off while Jamie and Rachel try to escape. They escape onto the roof, then fall down, and they end up then fleeing from Michael again and are found by the rednecks who try to take them out of town. Michael then catches up, slaughters the rednecks one by one, tries to kill Rachel, but is thrown off the vehicle. She hits him with the truck, then runs him over again, only for Michael to then be caught up to by the state police, who then blast him and kill him, but not before Jamie touches his hand and seems to take into herself the spirit of the Shape. And so the state police get rid of the body, I imagine. I'm not counting Halloween 5 there. And Loomis and the sheriff... Oh, and I skipped over the school thing, but fight scene, but it's not really too relevant. But the story ends with Loomis pronouncing the nightmare to be over, only for upstairs a certain figure to pick up a pair of scissors and a mask and then to murder Mrs. Carruthers before stepping over to the top of the stairs, breathing heavily and holding up the scissors menacingly, only for, well, Loomis to have a nervous breakdown then and there and try to put an end to the nightmare, only for the incompetent sheriff to wrestle the gun out of his hands and stare dumbly as he's threatened by Jamie, who has now become the new Shape. This ending is perfect, and it's a shame that all the sequels just simply rejected it, when this was the perfect opener to a new saga. The trouble is, Mustafa Akkad and everyone else were really, really, really dumb people. So they didn't understand that they were looking at a gold mine here and looking at a great artistic idea. But that's where, overall, the Halloween series has had more dumb ideas than out else. And I would argue that this was the perfect new beginning. They should have gone with Jamie as the new Shape.
I agree, because it flips the script. You've got something new going on, And there's a lot more that goes on. For
Yeah.
example, before, Mike Myers in The Shape was just this
Dorky guy in a
mask just going around killing people. It's like there wasn't a plan.
There wasn't anything more to the character, but here it hints at a demon essentially being in the that it turns this into a horror film, so that this is a demon that's at work
He's sabotaging Loomis and the police every step of the way.
and outfoxing them. But there's also a hint of desperation in Michael's actions, so that one gets the feeling that the Shape is desperate to get to a new body because Michael himself is his body's breaking down. I think because the bodily damage he suffered 10 years ago is catching up to him, and he's been in a coma for 10 years. I think that biologically he's probably on his last leg, and throughout the movie he takes a lot of damage, so that he's essentially dying. That said, it does beg the question, when he gets back up at the end right before the state police shoot him, is he Michael, or is like free of the Shape, or is he the Shape still? And
Or is he simply a puppet to divert attention?
oh, so he's still possessed, but there's just a sliver of the Shape in him, and it's just there to divert attention and distract people from Jamie while he's just to when I think that if that's the case, both Michael and Jamie are the Shape essentially in that moment. But the thing is, the Shape can only really truly inhabit one body. The thing is, it's basically withdrawing from Michael. But I don't think that the theory that he's still a little in Michael holds up. I prefer to think that he's no longer in Michael. So you might have had Michael, who's essentially getting up, dying or something, and because he can't survive too much longer without the Shape, and essentially the police put an end to him. And so there's a bit of a double tragedy here. At least that's what I like to think. Anyways, tell us what you think.
How would you rate this?
Yeah, I was going to say, as for the rating, first off, tell us what you think of this video, these theories. And as to the rating, I would rate this probably... Actually, you go first. I'm going to need a moment to think. This is hard to rate.
I will actually rate this a 3.
I will actually say that's a terrible rating. 4.
Oh.
This is a perfect horror movie. It's about the corruption and fall of innocence, and every shot counts and conveys a hint of melancholy and tragedy, and that there's something ominous going on. Just as part 6 of Friday the 13th was pretty much almost a 4, and the one Friday the 13th fan film, which continues the story of Tommy Jarvis, Bloodlines 2, was pretty much a 4 in my opinion. This movie, I think I rated it that. This movie I would rate it about as high. The thing is, every frame, every shot counts, every piece of dialogue counts, and the ending is just perfection.
Then I'll revise my rating. I'll raise it. Good 3 3/4.
Yeah, that seems fair to my mind. Why is that?
Yes, I enjoyed, for example, Bride of Dracula.
Same. That movie is way better than this one, but this one is a great 80s horror film.
Part of me wishes that the people behind Friday the 13th Bloodlines can do a conclusion with Jamie being the Shape and Rachel being the hero. A fan film by them.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But tell us what you think in the comment section, and both of our rating and of our ideas here. And don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button.